we consumers of mental health services borrowed the phrase living with an illness instead of dying from an illness. And we assert that we are living with schizophrenia. I've suffered from my illness, my family has suffered, but suffering does not define me or have the last word. My illness struck me as a young adult. I got good grades in high school except for that one D in driver's ed. I went off to Bethany College in Bethany, West Virginia. In college, I suffered from depression and made a number of suicide attempts. I never got any medical treatment, although I did have talk therapy. Despite my struggles, I studied in Paris and Quebec City, Canada, and I graduated with a degree in French and journalism. After college, I moved back to the Washington, D.C. area where I was from, and I never found that advertisement in the Washington Post that I was looking for. It would say, foreign correspondent wanted, no experience necessary, haute couture wardrobe provided. I missed it somewhere. So I went to work as a secretary, and that was a stressful job, made more stressful by the fact that I was supposed to be answering phone lines lit up like a Christmas tree, and I was hearing phone calls and voices that no one else in the room could perceive because they were a symptom of my early schizophrenia. I had my first psychiatric hospitalization about 2 years later, and my parents ached for me. My mother and father, they were older parents. My mother had 2 only children. My brother is 15 years older than I am. And she and my father, she was 39, and my father was 44 when I was born. And they were the most loving, caring, supportive parents that anyone could have. And I wish they had known about NAMI when I first got ill. A year after that hospitalization, a number of diagnoses later, I got on a Greyhound bus and traveled to Pittsburgh and West Virginia and Ohio and Indiana. And my friend in Indiana had friends in Iowa City, so she sent me on to Iowa City. This was in May of 1984, and I fell in love with Iowa City. I saw you had flowering fruit trees. I didn't come, mind you, in the winter. And I came out with the dream of getting into the writer's workshop. And I didn't know how hard it would be to get in or how hard it was to hear critiques of my writing when I was in the writer's workshop. But I stayed in Iowa because Iowa is where people on the bus know you by name. And Iowa, despite getting an F from NAMI, has been a good place to receive mental health services. Iowa has NAMI of Johnson County. Iowa has NAMI of Iowa. And Iowa has Compeer, which we had a wonderful concert last Saturday night. Last summer, I stepped down as secretary of NAMI of Johnson County so I could devote more of my energy to caring for my father, who was living with cancer. Even so, my NAMI family continued to support me these last 6 months of his life. You were with me when he died on the 1st of January this year. You were with me when we celebrated his life with lively music and jokes and tributes at his memorial service. You were with me during the ice cream social after the service. He would have been so pleased. You may have been wondering about these shoes. They're my father's last pair of shoes. They're Crocs, the kind of plastic shoes that a lot of nurses wear. They're big shoes. He had big feet. He could put them on and take them off easily, which wasn't true of the rest of his shoes. They're camouflage colors, brown, tan, and dirty green. They're really pretty ugly. He'd say, they're ugly as sin, but they're so comfortable. He wore them everywhere, even to church. Also, when he dressed for church, he would always put on a snazzy bow tie, and he would never get out the door without pinning on his silver Campaign for the Brain pin, which I am wearing today. There are so many ways I want to walk in his shoes. I want to walk in the shoes of my father's courage to look stigma in the face and say, mental illness is not a sin or a weakness. I want to walk in the shoes of my father's compassion, especially his caring for people hurting from mental illness and their loved ones. He would be the first to tell you that families don't cause mental illness. I want to walk in the shoes of my father's sense of humor, not laughing at anyone, but laughing with everyone. I want to walk in my father's generosity with money, with time, with hugs and words of encouragement. And to further demonstrate walking in my dad's shoes when it comes to wisdom and humor, I'd like to share with you my top 10 things I've learned by having a mental illness. My apologies to David Letterman. I never stay up late enough to hear his show. The top 10 things I have learned from having a mental illness. 10, acknowledging and accepting I have an illness is the first step in getting well. 9, medication is crucial, and I need more than medication alone to recover. 8, I am not a passive victim of my illness, and yet I need all the support I can to endure the cruel reality of my struggle. 7, sleep too little or too much is an element of my illness. It is essential that I do what I can to develop good sleep habits, such as taking evening meds at 8:30 and being in bed at 9:30 so I can get up at 6 in the morning to start a new day. 6, I must fuel my body with healthy food, such as fruits and vegetables and lean protein and high-fiber breads and cereals and chocolate. I have found supportive friends to reinforce healthy habits. 5, exercise. What a stress reducer, mood enhancer, feel-good experience. Between diet and exercise, I can fight the weight gain associated with my medications. 4, I've learned to manage my anger and channel it towards advocacy and positive uses, rather than saying or doing things to hurt my support network. I want to fight the illness, not the people that are trying to help me fight the illness. 3, I have a plan for each day. Making a to-do list eases my anxiety about forgetting things. I even make to-done lists. I got out of bed. I made my list. But it's okay if I don't do everything on the list. No one wants her tombstone to read, "She finished her to-do list." 2, I pick myself up, dust myself off after setbacks. Then I start all over again on my journey to recovery. 1, I have grown in empathy for other people who live with mental illness and for all our loved ones and family members trying to help. There isn't anyone whose life has not been touched by mental illness. I try to learn the story behind the person. People with mental illness enrich our lives. When we go from this place, we will be forming teams and planning strategies to raise money to empower the outreach of NAMI. We will be refueling ourselves for advocacy. We will be telling our stories and sharing our hard-found wisdom. But most of all, we'll be walking the walk that goes with the talk. And I will do that walking in my Father's shoes.